Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it. You already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Bye up, bye up. Let's get to the intro. Welcome back to the channel. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directing the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking. And I appreciate the support. I'm very humbled by it, right? So another prison riot, this time in New Folsom. New Folsom ain't no joke. New Folsom has a long, rich, deep history of prison riots. You know, New Folsom being a level 4 yard, one of the most notorious yards in the state of California. You think Folsom and you think old Folsom, you think American Me, you think que la primera lives, you think that yard. But New Folsom is a whole different animal. See, New Folsom, California State Prison, Sacramento is different, okay? It's always been a prison since it opened that has been notoriously known for killings, stabbings, pegadas, removals, and of course, riots. So the other day, they did have a riot, a 20-man riot. There was 20 individuals involved. 5 of them were stabbed. Okay, 4 were sent to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. 1 refused medical attention. He's like, nope, I'm cool. Yeah, it was a scrape, but it's all right. This is prison. That's what happens. Now, I told you guys the other day, I did a couple of prison riot videos. One was what yard do riots happen most on? Is it general population, GP, active yards, or is it SNY, protective custody yards, or 50-50 yards, right? And of course, the way I broke it down, and I let you guys know that more than likely, 9 times out of 10, riots are going to happen on the 50-50 or protective custody, now known as integrated programming yards, SNY yards, whatever, right? And the beat goes on like a whisper song. This riot that happened in New Folsom followed that pattern, okay? It happened in the EOP side. Now, let me explain to you what EOP is. EOP is a building or a yard in that particular prison that houses JCATs or 5150s or people that have mental health issues or people that have issues. Some of them are just playing it off. They're playing the JCAT role because they want to be on that particular yard for whatever reason. And then you actually have individuals that have been involved in a lot of violence, a lot of altercations while incarcerated in the state of California. And somehow, some way, they ended up, one flies over their cuckoo's nest, and they end up on an EOP yard. Now, there's different programs on EOP yards. I myself have never been on an EOP yard, but at one particular time, they tried to send me to an EOP building. And it was just, basically, they sent me there for AdSeg overflow. I got out of the oil. It was Jamestown, right? 1 block, I believe. They slid me up in there. I told the story, man. I got into it with the resident from Southern California, and that was that. And I was wondering why the hell I was in that building. I wasn't trying to be there because there were some dudes walking around going, discúlpame, discúlpame. They were all J-catted out there, and I was like, nah, this ain't where I'm supposed to be at. I'm a lot of things, but at EOP, I'm not, right? Period. So I ended up removing myself from that yard by getting into it. Well, actually, I got beat up on. Right? That's it. He took flight on me. Not particularly in the building, but outside of the building. It just is what it is, right? Now, when it comes to what happened the other day in New Folsom, there was a riot that popped off. Now, most riots happen on the SNY side. And this EOP, SNY, it all goes together. It's pretty much the same thing. Once you are housed in an EOP building, you are no longer in good standings. You are no longer considered general population. You are ostracized or separated or segregated from general population. Now, New Folsom does have some notorious characters that are doing some notorious things in the EOP side and the SNY side. One of those happens to be that individual that's out of the 805 area. If you guys remember, man, he was catching body after body. He already had 2 killings in. He's one of the guys that did that pegada in New Folsom with that other cat, and they stabbed the dude while he was chained to that chair in AdSeg, right? That was a very gruesome killing. That was a cowardice killing. But it was cold calculated, and he did what he did. I dropped the video on him speaking on it and talking about it. They called him the Monster, right? I think his name is Monster Cody, but not the Crip. Now, this riot that happened, from what I'm hearing, someone gave me a phone call. They told me that it definitely was on the EOP side and that it was two individuals that decided they were going to get off. They were trying to get off that yard, go to AdSeg, and it erupted into a riot. Now, you got to understand, on these SNY yards and EOP yards, you have gang members, guys that have dropped out of gangs or been pushed out of gangs and have decided to join up with another group. Some of them say for self-preservation, for protection, but a lot of the times it's just a cool thing to do. You know, I've run into a lot of non-active gang members. I call them non-active. If you ask them, they're going to say they're active in that particular set or that particular gaggle or group that they're claiming. You have groups like Northern Riders and 2-5ers and independent riders and cutthroats and capital punishments and sucker frees and all these different dudes that I've ran into in my lifetime. And I've always asked them the same question: why? Why would you go from being a Norteño or a Southsider or whatever, a BB, a Border Brother, because they're active? Why would you go from being a part of that group to a part of another group? Like, what's the get down there? What's the win-win situation of that? Because it seems to me, it's like going from the majors to the minors. It seems to me like you're doing that to still hold on to that gang mentality and to still figure like you're someone, when really what it does is it paints a target on your back. And most of these guys, not all of them, but most of them, once they get out of incarceration, once they get out of prison, okay, they lean away from that. They drop out of that. They no longer want to be a part of that. I think it's just that canalismo associating with a group or a gaggle or a gang makes them feel like they're somebody or they're cool, right? Again, I'm not speaking for no one. I'm not speaking disrespectfully about no one. This is just kind of what I gather. And the answer's usually particularly been the same. You know, canalismo, love, that's the people that they fuck with. That's their mentality. When you have a gang member or a gangster and they grow up a certain way, that's all they know. They know a lot more, but that's all they choose to identify with, or that's all they choose to recognize. It's kind of hard when you're removed from a general population setting, or when your people turn their back on you, or when they push you out, or when you get ran off the yard. What do you expect the mentality to be? It's not always cowardice. Sometimes, man, people feel disgruntled. They feel displaced. They feel like, hey, it's kind of like what's going on in the neighborhoods now with gentrification. Starbucks are popping up, and this tofu place and a Japanese fucking sushi restaurant and all these different things are popping up, and you start to feel displaced. You start, hey, where's the taco trucks at, man? Where's the fucking liquor store? You know, where's the hood shit that we grew up with, the barrio stuff we grew up with, the homies we grew up with, homies we grew up with. Now they don't even respect your ass. And now it's time for the gun load to check your ass, fool, right? And I'm trying to let you know that's the mentality. You just can't let it go. You know, it's a very hard thing to do, man. When I first was pushed away in bad standings, right? When I was told you can't come to the barrio no more, essay, right? When I was told you're no longer good in the hood, I said, great. Okay, my mentality in the beginning was, damn, I ain't going to let no one tell me what's up. Hey, no one could push me away from the soil which I toiled. Hey, I spilled more blood on the street than this motherfucker got in his body. This was my whole mentality. I was trying to psych myself out, when at the end of the day, man, the decisions I had made, the red on red movement, the whatever I participated in, I was in a position now to dictate my own program, and it was really a great position. Okay, I still missed the canalismo, the red rag, and the hanging around with the Northerners, the gang banging. All that was still instilled in me, and that's what I believed in. But slowly but surely, I had to recognize, but that wasn't my life anymore. No longer was I included in the reindeer games and embraced with that canalismo, but it just wasn't for me. So rather than choosing to go bat for the B team, rather than saying, you know what, then I'm going to go join another group that's anti what you guys are pushing, I decided against that. I decided to treat everyone with equal respect, whether you're active or non-active, and push. Now, I get recognized right here on social media and by a lot of people as a piece of shit. A lot of people don't like me, but there's a lot of people that understand my mentality. I'm rocking how I'm going to rock, and that's just the way it is. I'm never going to be one to disrespect one group over the other. I'm not picking north over south or south over north. I'm showing everyone equal respect, because every man, active or non-active, is deemed worthy of that, unless you're a weirdo. Then you get no love. So anyways, the mentality with these dudes that choose to involve themselves in gangs and obligate themselves into reglas and politics and things of that nature, the mentality usually is they just can't let it go. They just can't let it go. And a lot of these guys, see, it went from guys that were actually established and were once part of something, whether it be norteño or sureño, they were once part bulldog, of functioning with their group. That was hard to let go because that's all they knew, right? But nowadays, what you have is a lot of youngsters that have never stepped foot on a prison yard, never been a part of them politics, that have just decided at some point before they get to the prison yard, man, this ain't for me. I ain't trying to go out there. They're killing motherfuckers out there, right? Then they get to an SNY yard or a 50-50 yard or whatever the case may be, wherever the ICC committee decides to place them or wherever they request to be placed. Because 9 times out of 10, these dudes are requesting where they want to go, right? You can't request what particular yard you want to go to, but you can request what particular status on that yard you want to be, whether it's GP or SNY. That's a fact, right? And so when these guys are going to these yards, they see that this is a weaker, softer yard, allegedly, right? And what they do is they start to associate with people that are from their same areas, same city. And if they have a homeboy from their neighborhood or someone they were in county with or whatever, that's a part of these groups, which are considered dropout gangs or whatever you want to consider them. I don't feel like disrespecting them today, but that's just what they say. And if they lean that way, then they kind of bring in whoever they could bring in, and there they go, man. Now, what happens? One group decides to go on another. It's crazy because I used to remember when the 2-5ers and the Northern Riders used to go at it, right? And it was like North and South all over again. They were doing the North and South thing. You'd see all the dudes from LA or all the dudes from Southern California were 2-5ers, and then you see all the dudes from Northern California, Sacramento, Modesto, Merced, wherever, man. They were all part of the Northern Riders, right? Now, in the Riders, there was a few different individuals from all over the place, even Southerners, right? And 2-5ers had a few guys from up north, but you'd see the basically the blueprint was already put out, or the red print, Sur Gang, right? For North and South. And it was all over again. That's what these guys were doing. Okay, now a lot of these guys on these yards, they politic. They have their own little reglas and things that they implemented. And first and foremost, I think their first rule and regulation is they go against all active gang members, right? Now that the California model has been implemented, now that the end of hostilities have been implemented, now that all these different things are happening in CDCR, what we got going on now is the integration process of dudes that are on the bad yards with the guys that are on the good yards, and the guys that are on the good yards are discombobulated because they don't want to stay on that bad yard, but they can't help it because it's becoming a bad yard that fast, right? So it's hard, and riots and things and melees and assaults are going to occur. And this is part of what the system and the process of that system, this is what they want. See, the California prison system is a very big industry, and the more chaos, the more controlled chaos that they can have on these yards, the better it is for the COs and the administration, not for the inmate or the convict. They can give a fuck less about them. They're there. They're doing crime. They did their crime. They're doing time. So they have to do time the way the administration wants them to do it. So they're going to be placed in bad predicaments and situations that could basically fuck your career off, end your career as a gang member, or you could do what King Nico did and go fight fires. It's up to you, right? And how people judge you and look at you, that's just something you're going to have to deal with. If you're a man with thick skin, then you can deal with it. If you're not, then you're not. And that's just how it is. Chirujo. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, straight up, this riot that happened in New Folsom, allegedly, from what I'm hearing, happened on the all bad side, right? So it was 2 individuals, like I said, that were having a conflict with a certain group. I'm not going to say what the group is, but they're a SNY group. And they decided to get off where they were mad at. They decided to put in some work, and that erupted into pretty much what is considered a riot. Now, a riot can be anything more than 10 people. I don't really consider a 20-man melee or whatever you want to call it a riot. You know, when I think riots, I think Pelican Bay 2001. I think New Folsom back in the 90s. I think, you know, New Mexico, them riots. You know, I guess if you have a few individuals that are able to set I remember Oz on HBO. Now, that was a riot. You know what I'm saying? They were doing their thing. But I don't consider a fight on the yard or an eruption on the yard of 20 or less inmates or convicts a riot, okay? That's a melee. That's something that happens fast. Especially, you could tell that it wasn't that serious, because if it was, there would have been a body on that yard. There would have been more shots fired. They were able to stop this alleged riot in New Folsom with chemical agents. And let me tell you guys, There's a lot of people, oh man, that's coward pussy shit, man. They laid it down when the OC pepper spray came out. If you've never been pepper sprayed in your life, then you'll never understand. I've been being pepper sprayed since I was 12 years old, right? And I'm gonna tell you guys right now, back in the days in the Youth Authority, Nellis, the first time I was ever pepper sprayed was in NRCC in Sacramento. And I remember my first day there, little Inez from Fresno was my cellie, and he was giving me the rundown. They were just coming off a lockdown situation. He had already been there prior to me pulling up from juvenile hall, right? And so he's giving me the quick rundown. He's like, hey, all Southsiders on site. They actually are bringing them here from Bakers. If we see them, get them, because they're going to get off on you. See, it was working both ways, right? It was Soul Gang, and they were on Soul Gang on theirs. I always have respect for the 805 and for Bakers. I know it's 661 now, but back in the days, it was 805. Them dudes from Bakers were phenomenal with the hands, and they were phenomenal with the pressure. They'll come out and get off. So I remember that very first day we're going to chow, and a riot kick, not a riot. Again, man, it was 5 Southsiders and 40 Northerners, and the 5 Southsiders got confuzzled. It was all bad for them, right? But they fought. They fought, man. They fought back. They threw chairs. They did whatever they had to do, but the pressure was just pretty bad, right? Sioux Gang, right? It was pretty bad on that Sioux Gang, but in that riot, the cops started to spray. Okay, and that was my first taste of pepper spray. And then the first time I was like, oh man, this is no joke, right? Then after going to Nellis, I realized, man, that shit was like maple syrup. That shit tasted like blueberries and raspberries on pancakes. It was nothing. The mace didn't affect us. You got so used to it, you actually became immune to it. Until one day, Governor Pete Wilson said, here, toma, fuck these guys. And he put out some more money, man, and they ended up getting that OC spray, which smelled like fucking tangerines and oranges and knocked you off your feet. That shit was no joke. Nowadays, they have so many more things they have, right? They have things that go in, take your whole breath away, and they'll drop you instantly. So for a riot or an alleged riot to be stopped by chemical agents, facts, it happens, right? I remember when I was in Jamestown prison and I got off, man, I was fighting a white Crip. And I rushed them, boom, boom, boom. I was getting hit with the rubber bullets. They hit me 8 times directly in the back, boom, boom, boom. That didn't affect me because my adrenaline was pumping. A normal mortal man, and I was mortal, right? It would have dropped me if my adrenaline wasn't pumping, but I was feeling it, but not feeling it. If you understand what I'm saying. If you've ever been in a fight and it's hype, then you really are like just going, you know? But as soon as they came running with that OC spray or whatever it was, I was done. Bye-bye. Hasta la bye-bye, gun. See you later. I was in the cell like I ate a hot chip. Like I just did the hot chip challenge, right? It was all bad. My cellie was in there like, he was over there fucking, he didn't even get involved, and he was over there suffering too. They left me in there to suffer with them. That motherfucker was like, damn, bro, why'd you have to get off? Motherfucker, he disrespected me. You know what I'm saying? Give me the towel. You're not supposed to wipe your eyes. I was on that motherfucker burning, balls burning, because it was all bad. Anyways, allegedly this new Folsom riot that they're saying was stopped by chemical agents. So I could tell you that it was not that bad. But there was injuries. There was weaponry recovered. But I'm here to tell you it didn't happen on the general population side yard. Not on GP. I told you guys the other day in a video, you're not going to see a lot of riots on GP. I know people watch movies and they see the movie Shot Caller and they let's get these vatos in. You see all that stuff? That very rarely happens. Because you got to understand, active gang members, people that are actually involved, right? You have spokesmen, you have MAC reps, you have people that are of status, you have mesas, you have all these different things going on these yards. And before it gets to that point, there's going to be conversations had in essay that Sur Gang. There's going to be people that talk. And if it can't be worked out by a simple discussion or a conversation or some business, then and only then can it escalate to warfare, right? But nobody wants that. Not North, not South, not blacks, not whites, not others, not Asian. Like nobody wants that because you got a lot of things happening on the yard. Look there's people on there that they might just be getting that one visita and they haven't had a visit in 10 years. And they're looking forward to that. And man, you fuck that off, they might go crazy. They might be like, Sur Gang or Norte Gang. Like you just don't want to do that. You don't know what people got going on or what people are going through. So a riot is something very major, and it is basically the end of the railroad, right? It is the last option. So it rarely happens on GP. It does happen, and when it happens, bodies drop. This one was none of that. This was just a lightweight melee, 20 people involved from an SNY gang and a couple EOPers, and that's just what that was. So that's what I'm hearing, man. So for the people out there like, damn, Is my old man on lockdown? There's a lot of females. They're always quick when a riot happens. Is my old man on lockdown? Or they're on lockdown? They're on modified program. I'm sure it's probably lifted already. Because usually when it's like on the SNY side or the non-active side, they'll modify the program for like a day. They know these motherfuckers ain't going to do nothing else. So they let them back out. Not to say that they're punks and they're scary and they won't handle business. They'll kill you quicker on an SNY yard than they will on a GP yard. And that's a fact, right? No matter what anyone says. But they know that the groups, usually they'll take that one group that was involved, get rid of them or put them in the hole, and everyone else just resumes program. See, in GP, you can get modified program for months because they have to make sure that these two groups see eye to eye before they put them on the yard. And usually when there's a body on one side and not the other, it's not going to stop till everyone catches one. That's just the truth. With that being said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in. That's the betterment of all people. That's what happened on New Folsom, man. It started off with 2 individuals that were getting off for whatever reason, and it escalated. 4 people sent to the hospital. 1 refused medical attention. Program's back to normal. This is the gun. Bang, bang.